which one is the most Filipino thing up here? That only makes sense if you can watch us on Facebook at Facebook Live or watch, or at Facebook at emilguillermo.media. I mean, that's where we're showing this. Or on YouTube. Maybe you're on YouTube at Emil Amok. I have not yet determined if I'm going to be like, you know, if leaving Twitter is going to be like my move to Canada moment. I don't know how bad Twitter's going to get. I don't use Twitter all that much anyway. I mean, I do. I mean, here I am. You can see me here. But it's not necessarily my go. Well, I don't know. I like Twitter, but here I am on Facebook mostly, also on YouTube. Emil Guillermo at YouTube. You can watch it there. I don't even like the graphic user interface. Is that old-fashioned to call it that? Graphic user interface? Oh, let me just adjust my camera here now. Because, I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's a kind of an old one, and they're going to have to update. I mean, if Elon Musk is serious about doing something right by Twitter, but look, talking about little details like the technical aspects of it, that's one thing, but you got to look at the big picture, which is here's an oligarch who's just bought a social media platform because he wants to own the public square. There's something kind of illogical about that. He wants to own the playground. And is he going to let everyone on the playground, or is he going to bully people off the playground? I mean, that's kind of the issue with Twitter. I know people are still buzzing about it. I want to put my buzz out there because dolt that I am, I thought, oh, well, he's just going to buy some shares of Twitter. No, Emil, he's buying all of the shares of Twitter. I just thought he was going to buy like a couple. No, the majority, right? Which would make sense, except he wants to buy the whole damn thing. Which changes everything, because that means he's taking the public square and making it private. And, I mean, you could do that, but you only do that for one reason. It's so that you don't have the White House and the regulators on your back. You don't have Congress on your back. You can give the big middle finger to Obama and say, oh, Obama, here he's talking about disinformation and being responsible. I don't have to follow that. I own the damn thing. So that is really the issue about Elon Musk. And I see a lot of people saying, that's it, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be on Twitter anymore. I'm not yet at that stage because I'm barely on Twitter now. but it makes you wonder. You know, Zuckerberg's not, I mean, he's not bailing out and selling to one guy on Facebook. I don't know. Does any one person have enough money? It shows you the power of social media, which seems like, oh, just a few little bits of code. And suddenly that's, my God, what has the 21st century wrought, you might say? Oh, the rot is in democracy, Emil. Don't you know that? Anyway, welcome to the program. It's Emil Amok's Takeout, the Lanyap section. That's where we give you a little something. We start at 2 p.m. Pacific live, but just in case some people are like finding themselves, you know, just what do you do on social media? You just sort of like scroll through and just find yourself doing things. They might bump into this. This is the Lanyap. There's something extra. But we got some stuff to talk about today. I want to talk about more LapuLapu stuff from yesterday. You know, it was LapuLapu Day. That's a big deal. LapuLapu Day. And it should be World LapuLapu Day, where you thwart. I was going to use a more aggressive term, but thwart is something I like to use in public because it sounds like, oh, you're really like, it's like you're slapping someone. You're thwarting them. only more aggressive than that. Anyway, LapuLapu Day, that's the day you thwart your colonizer. So we'll follow up on that. April 27th, yesterday, was it was LapuLapu Day in the Philippines. And it really should be World LapuLapu Day. World LapuLapu Day. Did you make it your own personal? Did you do your own personal LapuLapu action? Somehow thwart your colonizer? You know who your colonizers are. In your effort to decolonize, what did you do yesterday? I mean, I said yesterday that maybe this Zelensky guy is the modern LapuLapu standing up to Russia. He is kind of Volodymyr Zelensky. I mean, we'd have to get rid of the green T-shirt and give him a barong Tagalog. See, just like Happy here, he's my sidekick. You know, like Jimmy Kimmel has Guillermo. He calls him Guillermo. He's Mexican, I guess, so he can pronounce it that way. Filipinos say Guillermo. So if this is my micro talk show, then I got my gong sidekick. Anyway, so Zelensky really he's the one guy right now who's standing up to the geopolitical bad guy of the day, who is none other than Vladimir Putin. And I have this up here. I saved this New York Times. It's a Virgin New York Times, which means I haven't cracked it open, from February 25th, 2022, because look at this. War in Ukraine, Russians push into outskirts of capital and bombard country as deaths mount. Oh, we don't know how much deaths have mounted. February 25th, this New York Times. War started on the 24th. This is the morning, Friday of February 25th. Look where we are now. It's April 28th, 2 months. February, March to April, 2 months of war. And if you didn't catch it yet, the news of the day is that Joe Biden is asking for more money. How much more, Emil? Well, nothing like asking for 33 billion more in aid to Ukraine. It's twice the size of a previously approved package. But what does it say? It says that the cost of this fight, this is what Biden says, the cost of this fight is not cheap. So now it's up to the world leader of democracy to put up or shut up. Those of you out there know I have my opinion about this. I'm a pacifist at heart. I'm not violent. I'm more lover than fighter. I've come around. I love Larry Itliong in the Larry Itliong versus Cesar Chavez debate. You know, Chavez, somewhat of an acolyte of Martin Luther King. He was the lover. And Larry Itliong, the Filipinos, they were the fighters in that UFW, the grape strike, the great Delano grape strike of 65. And yet, over time, as much as I love Larry, I've come to respect Cesar Chavez for what he did and his approach, which is definitely more in line with where I am, which is really the love your neighbor, even your enemy. And it doesn't seem aggressive enough, effective enough sometimes, but if you're mindful, it is the only way to get to a kind of victory that will last. So, war is never the answer. Marvin Gaye said that. What's going on? Remember that? Go to Spotify. Check out Marvin Gaye. I just think that when you talk about war, the approach that we took back in February was we're going to not get boots on the ground. We're going to support NATO. We're going to support our allies. Always the right thing. And then here come the sanctions, and the sanctions are never enough. We're sanctioning oligarchs. We now have gotten to the point where Russia is playing energy blackmail with Poland and other countries, expanding the war to Moldova, it looks like. This is all in 2 months. This is not a quick war. War is not quick. It's never quick. And it's never cheap. And that's what Biden said today. The cost of this fight is not cheap. The message to Americans is prepare for a long, long conflict. And the real question is, do we want a long, long conflict? I think we need to at least cop to the fact that, well, this may be the only way, the best way to try to get Putin to stop. General Austin may be right? Weaken Russia. This is tough because we are working or we're negotiating or in opposition to a person who does not seem to be doing things in a logical fashion. The term is madman, but this is the situation we're in. And I don't like it. I wish there were more a push button sanction approach that we could immediately get Putin to say uncle, or in this case, Uncle Vanya. But it doesn't seem like it. And that's really the troubling thing. In the meantime, we might be able to do this indefinitely as long as Biden does not put boots on the ground. That's always been the standard. So all we're doing now is throwing money, this is when you are the world leader, there are such things as geopolitical money pits. And this is the geopolitical money pit. Sort of like buying a house with no mortgage, but you have a responsibility and you just keep throwing money at it. And you hope that you do enough so that it gets your opponent, in this case, Vladimir Putin, to just stop, retreat, or have a point where negotiations begin, a ceasefire begins with negotiations that give everyone a way out, because we want the madness to stop at some point. Clearly, the threshold for madness on the part of the Russians is much higher than for us, Americans. But gas is high, everything's high, we're paying more, the economy is sort of mixed. That's the question. Now we're paying $33 billion into this money pit. And unless someone has a better question or better answer, I think we need to side with the president. That's the unfortunate conclusion where we're at now, because we can't leave it up to Elon Musk to fund the war, right? This is what governments do. So it pains me to say this, because I don't like war, but as long as there are no boots on the ground, as long as American lives are at stake, American dollars. Remember, it's an investment. All right, this is what the salesmen always say. Remember, it's an investment in global democracy. It's It's an investment in freedom. And under those circumstances, wouldn't you want that? So this is a tough one. And as I hear other people talk, as I hear especially the Republicans, I just want to back Biden. I hear Republicans start saying things like, well, what is Ukraine and what does it matter to us, and do we want to spend them? You already see it beginning to happen. Oh, and they're, and of course, you know what Trump's saying, that, well, we wouldn't be in this mess if I was in charge. No, we would be so deep in Putin's pockets, we wouldn't really know what was happening to our democracy until it was too late. So, considering the alternative, I think we back Biden. I think as a country, we say, yeah. I think it's strange that, Biden's talking during the day, meaning his message really isn't to, mom and pop at home when he'd usually give an address at 6 at night or 9 o'clock at night. He's giving this address sometime in the morning. I had some other things going on, because people do have things going on during the day, but it means that maybe Americans aren't paying full attention to this. They should. They should know why this is an important thing. So I just have I question sort of the strategy on letting people know about this. But he's saying it. Here's $33 billion. It's more than, we may have thought, but as the president said, war is not cheap. Given the alternative, this may be the best way, but it also indicates that, hey, hold on. This is going to go for a while. I got all the talk show gizmos. I got all the flipping sounders. And I got a sidekick here. Hey, welcome to Emil Amok's Takeout once again. I'm Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. See my columns on ALDEF, the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. My last piece was on Michelle Steele, really irrational claim that she's a victim of racism. What we're learning is that this is a Republican ploy. She's married to a Republican operative, John Steele, out of California. She's claiming Michelle Steele is a Korean American who is married to a Caucasian. She is in a really tight battle in CA 45, California 45, Orange County, against Jay Chen. Jay Chen, who's a veteran. Jay Chen, who's the son of Taiwanese immigrants. A good guy, Jay Chen. And he was simply making a comment about Michelle Steele's illogic when it comes to her politics, because she seems to say one thing in public and do another when it comes to her votes in the legislature or her votes in Congress. She says one thing in public, does another in private. She is not as good a liar as Kevin McCarthy, who is the best good liar out there. But it does show an approach that the Republican Party is taking. And it's not just taking it, in the case of, individually with Michelle Steele against Jay Chen. Steele claiming racism and victimhood, and Jay Chen is like scratching his head saying, what the heck is she talking about? She is illogical. She is claiming a false, she is using a false narrative to gain sympathy from voters, which is not earned by Michelle Steele. If you're down there in California 45, look at Jay Chen. Look at the things he does for the people. Consider Jay Chen. but also look at this as a strategy that the GOP is going to use throughout the nation. So that's my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. If you joined us late, we did talk about Elon Musk. You can rewind and go back to that. We did talk about World LapuLapu Day, where we're colonizing, right? This is about World LapuLapu Day. Filipinos, Asian Americans who are of Philippine descent, are now gifting the world this image of LapuLapu, the Cebuano or the Visayan warrior, who was the leader, essentially the leader of the Philippines, 1521, April 27th. He slays Ferdinand Magellan. Yeah, that's right, Magellan, Mr. Circumnavigation. Slays him. I mean, he doesn't kill him. I mean, he kills him, but it doesn't kill Spanish colonialism, because Legazpi comes 40 years later and then colonizes the Philippines for 330 plus years. But the point is, the Filipinos stood up to the colonials and beat them back for as long as they could. LapuLapu is that guy, and it should be a symbol to the world that you can beat back colonialism. You can beat back the aggressor of your sovereign sensibilities. Who is the aggressor in today's modern world? Vladimir Putin. So who would be the LapuLapu? Volodymyr Zelensky. And then taking it on a personal level, who are the colonizers who are upsetting you? Or forget other people, just look within. Are you colonized from within? Does your mind rattle from the invisible chains of colonial thinking? That's the thing about colonial thinking. It's better than slavery because the chains are invisible. They're rattling in our heads. And what we have to do is we have to free ourselves from that and kill the colonizer. The metaphorical colonizer who is oppressing you. Who is that? Who is that? You know who it is. World LapuLapu Day was April 27th. It's April 28th. If you missed it on April 20th, then you can't thwart your colonizer totally, because it's not officially World LapuLapu Day today, but it's LapuLapu Week. We'll give it a week. Thwart your colonizer today, if you can. Metaphorically, of course. I'm just suggesting you free yourself from the rattling chains of colonization. Next on the agenda, there's some other things we're talking about. Oh, I talked about the museum. And the museum's an important thing. There's a new bill. Grace Meng passed it. Asked Congress to look for ways to push for an Asian American Pacific Islander museum. I talked to some people I know in the museum community. I'm not talking about the museum I used to be a part of, the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum. I'm talking about real bona fide museums, museum people. You know, and when I was in the museum world briefly, I liked it, because the museum is sort of like that halfway point between academic, kind of the academic world, the ivory tower, and journalism in a way, right? It's because journalism is information, the information of today, the history of today that you don't care about, you throw it away. Ultimately, if you say those newspapers, they become history and they become sources for the academic. So museums are like, they're kind of, honest to God, they're the trash bins, the valuable trash bins that everyone can go into and dumpster dive and find riches of information, historical information. This is where the valuable garbage is that people in the past were too stupid to save, and people who are too smart for the real world they glean stuff from this and say, oh, here's an artifact. Here's an artifact. We need that for Asian America. And so the question is, where do we put this museum? Here's where I think you put the museum. California. I say California because this is where all the Asians are. Now you can have a good argument for, well, the museum really should be someplace where there are no Asian Americans, and so people can come. No, if there are no Asian Americans, they won't go to the museum. I mean, it makes no sense to put it in Kansas or Nebraska. Well, Nebraska, there's a lot of newer Asian Americans, refugees and whatnot, people from, places like Nepal. And, there's like a ton of new Asian Americans, say, the last 15 years, populating places like Nebraska and Kansas. It would be cheaper, but I don't know, would an Asian American in Koreatown, in LA, or in New York, would they travel to Kansas? I don't know. This is one of the things. Is it going to be publicly funded? Funds from Congress? Would it be privately funded? Would there be a donor? Elon Musk. Does Elon Musk say, yeah, after Twitter, I'm going to fund an Asian American Pacific Islander museum? I don't think Elon Musk, does he have any ounce of Asianness? Maybe Central Asia, possibly. I just think that this is a big deal, this bill that passed Congress this week to look into an AAPI museum. And maybe the next stop is the Smithsonian getting involved in this, and the Smithsonian being designated as the place for an Asian American Pacific Islander museum in the nation's capital. I think it makes sense. There are already precedents. Other groups have their museums. Let's see how this comes together, because this is a bill that's in the House. It's going to go to the Senate, pass the House, likely to pass the Senate if Mazie Hirono, our Asian American, our Asian American leader there, has her way. I think it makes sense. Hirono and Meng work together on all sorts of bills, like the hate crime bill. Let's see how it works. And one day, next to you visit Washington, D.C., you're going to say, oh, I want to see the Air and Space Museum, and I want to go see the AAPI Museum. Wouldn't that be a great thing? I know Asian Americans who've worked at the Smithsonian in the past and in the present. I think it's the only logical thing. Yeah, I'd like to go see an AAPI museum as part of the Smithsonian in the city of museums, Washington, D.C. Right there in the mall. That would be great. That absolutely. Book my ticket now. Right now, I'd go. A couple of other things. I wanted to alert you to this. I talked about Michelle Steele. I want to talk about this news report that came out of the Times today. GOP concocts new fake threat, voter fraud by undocumented immigrants. And this seems to be something that's spreading throughout the country. Ohio's Senate primary shows how the Republicans, obsessed with the fiction of a stolen election, have spawned a new cause for fear of illegal immigration, that undocumented immigrants are voting. I guess this issue comes up because people realize that, it's far-fetched that dead people vote, although we know dead people can vote. They have voted in the past. But now this is the new xenophobia. And it comes 6 years after the formerly twice impeached president got to the White House on nativist and xenophobic appeals to white voters. And now, once again, it's coming up in places like Michigan and in Ohio. And even though there's no proof of any of this being true, well, it's not about proof. Remember this, it's not about proof. It's just about fear. It's not about fact. It's just about fear. And when you challenge people to say, give me proof, they can't get proof, but the damage is done because it's not about facts. It's about fear and what kind of fear is elicited from their cockamamie xenophobic claims. I hate to see that. I hate to see that because xenophobia, you think, well, I thought I had a handle on xenophobia. I thought, oh, we're only going to fear the Chinese and Asian American scientists now because, we went after Franklin Dow, in that Dow case that happened this past couple months ago. Don't know quite the disposition yet, but he lost his case. And that the fear is going to be high that, Asian Americans, Chinese Americans who are citizens are going to be falsely accused. China Initiative, a DOJ initiative that began under Trump, not exactly killed or not exactly buried by the current administration. I had said in my ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, that was the next step for xenophobia in America. But now we, apparently, according to the Times, we have a new one, undocumented voting. They don't vote. They're not voting illegally. They are paying taxes legally. They're not paying taxes illegally. They're working and their wages are taken out. They're paying into the system. They're just undocumented, which isn't necessarily a violation of, say, criminal law, maybe immigration law, but there are ways out. And certainly, given the employment situation in America, I'm sure they're doing jobs other people don't want to do. That has always been the standard thing with undocumented immigrants. They're here because opportunity. The opportunity here is better than where they're from. I just think we don't need another wave of xenophobia, especially in that part of the country where the red is redder than ever. And I'm just saying, watch out for that. Other stories. Okay, now this is another story I like to news glean. This is important, I think, because you sort of wonder, why was the University of North Carolina, why was it considered part of the, why was it part of that whole Harvard College thing? Why did conservatives make it or include the University of North Carolina? Well, it turns out that according to, I'm trying to find the story here. Once again, according to the Times, there was a real attempt to make sure that, see, I can't find that story. But there was a conservative attempt to show that there was some kind of, I guess, not illegal, but something was going on with admissions that would make people say, hey, affirmative action is a bad thing. Oh, now I had that story and now I don't have that. See, now I'm looking at it and, here. GOP, they made it small. They made the headline small, so I couldn't find it like rapidly. GOP lawmakers created a hostile academic and racial climate at the University of North Carolina, a professor's group says. This is a new report that says the Republicans created a hostile climate on campuses. The administration called it absurd. But this is a prestigious national academic group that charged today that North Carolina's legislature had politically interfered with the operations of the University of North Carolina. For more than a decade, creating this hostile climate, academic and racial climate, including at the flagship Chapel Hill. This is a report by the American Association of University Professors, details how Republican lawmakers, after taking over the General Assembly in 2010, wrested control of the university system's Board of Governors, as well as the trustees of its 17 individual campuses, influencing chancellor appointments and closing academic centers dedicated to fighting poverty, pollution, and social injustice. So what they did was they stacked all the overseeing bodies at the university, the conservative legislature, essentially took over control of the entire system. And then they went after everything that seemed wokish, anything that they changed things to fit this conservative agenda. And now the academics here at the American Association of University Professors in this report now are just letting it known this is why you're seeing the university used as an example of kind of it said, well, the big thing about the report is that it claimed that the reputation of the school would be blemished and would hurt recruiting faculty. And because when you have the state legislature looking into what or meddling with what's going on at the state's universities, the highest level of education in the system. Well, what does that say about academic freedom? What does that say about trying to poison the well and make sure that everyone speaks the same tune or has the same poisonous flavor? Because I guess this was a reaction to their perception that, academics, far left, far too left. But anyway, I think this is probably why. Well, it does mention Nicole Hannah Jones, how that when she was offered a job there at UNC, they made sure that people knew about it so that it wasn't, they made a big deal. It made Hannah Jones leave and say, I'm going to take this job at Howard. She knew that racism was institutionalized in the system. That's what the report says. This is, here's the other thing. The state is 20% black. 5% of UNC faculty members are black. So what this report by the American Association of University Professors is trying to say is that that's no mistake. You got to say that's 20% black and the professors are only 5%. And we have this situation with Nicole Hannah-Jones happening where she picks up and leaves because she senses institutional racism. She takes a job at Howard instead. I think this is just an indication of how conservatism had an agenda to take over the universities in North Carolina, and why it's no mistake why North Carolina is included in that suit, or in a kind of suit like the one that Harvard's involved in that challenges affirmative action. It's part of a conservative agenda. So, I just wanted to mention that because it's caught my attention. The big story that I saw that I did want to talk about briefly was this idea of cotton balls. Did you see that story about cotton in the San Francisco schools? There was a teacher who was fired. She was out of her classroom for 5 weeks. She's an 8th grade teacher, San Francisco's Creative Arts Charter School. She brought cotton plants to show what cotton plants are like, to teach about slavery in the U.S. She also showed a cotton gin. Social studies teacher. I saw this story. It's been around since Monday, but I finally saw it today. I miss the Chronicle sometimes. This was reported first in the Chronicle. And now the school district is not saying anything. They're not confirming or denying that the teacher was fired, or they just say that teacher was gone. And San Francisco Unified supposedly is progressive. At least that's what reports say. I don't know. It has like 435 students. Half of them are white in this school, this creative charter school. I just don't know why they let this teacher go through the ringer for bringing in a piece of cotton and showing the cotton gin, which to me sounds counterproductive. There's some people who reacted and said, oh, this is traumatizing to the kids. I don't know, is it traumatizing to the kids? See, this is the kind of confusion that is, I just read the story and thought, why is San Francisco Unified School District doing this to a teacher who wants to make learning creative and interesting? Here's what we fought over. Cotton, here's the cotton gin, here's the, that's kind of a basic 8th grade lesson. But there are people who protested that, and I don't know if it's, how it splits up between the progressives versus the conservatives. But why would anyone be against that? Teaching people about the cotton gin. I imagine this is the critical race theorists that the people say, oh, look, this is like a negative thing about the United States. Cotton, here's cotton. Here's the cotton gin. I'm bringing it into class. We're talking about it. I'm enriching your experience in history, saying nothing negative about the United States. But some people objected to this, and for some reason, the teacher was not seen for 5 weeks. And later, when she came back, she had to apologize. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I know that there's some progressive parents who don't get it, saying that the teacher was being treated in a cruel way. But For some reason, there are teachers, professional education folks who are very skittish now about they don't know what to teach. Teach the facts, teach history, and having a teacher bring in some cotton plants and talking about the cotton gin is not traumatizing. No more traumatizing than it is to say, oh, look, those clothes that you're wearing, they're made of cotton. Yeah, made of cotton fabric. That's one of the things they battled over about slavery. I don't get it. If you know, enlighten me. Tell me where I'm wrong. I mean, why San Francisco schools did that. I don't get it. Okay, with that, we've come to that point of the show where we begin our meditation. You know, I don't know if any of you do any mindful eating, because I guess this is lunch. Well, it's a late lunch for some people. But, you know, I like to do mindful eating sometimes when I find myself overeating. I'll pick up a pistachio. A pistachio is a good mindful eating object because you know how you usually eat pistachios, right? It's like, you know, it's like an assembly line. It's like you can't get them enough. You shell them and you pop them. You shell them and you pop them. You shell them and you pop. Oh, remember to chew them. You shell them and you pop them. You shell them and you pop them. Pistachios are that kind of food. But it dawns on me that, wow, if you slow down and just look at the pistachio and are just more mindful, you'd appreciate the pistachio. You'd be intentional about eating. And instead of eating like a whole bag of pistachios in one sitting, you might eat 5 or 10. That would not be a ridiculous thing. Pistachios, I'll eat the whole bag. I just like nonstop pistachios. I'm a pistachio person. No, but the point is, if you're mindful about it and just looking at the pistachio and looking at how it's open. This pistachio says eat me because it's like slightly open. The other pistachios that aren't slightly cracked, I can't eat them. Why would I eat them? But this one, I'm eating this one. And then maybe in 10 minutes you eat like 5. And then you put away the pistachios and then you're ready to have dinner or something. And I'm ready to have my mindful drinking. Oh, mindful drinking. Yes, this is a martini and it's just a thought about mindful eating that came to mind. So at this juncture, like I said, we go into this meditative mode because we all want to beat each other up. I mean, there are times when you think, oh, why did I do that? Why did I think that? Here's a simple trick. No matter what happens, be unconditional in your love of self. Even though X happened, bad, be unconditional in the love of yourself. It's just a little phrase that helps. Because when you do that, you won't beat yourself as hard. You'll say, all right, I unconditionally love myself. And just pausing in that way could help you just to get out of this trap where you are stymied by this negative thing that happened. And you want to blame yourself. You want to beat yourself up. You want to say, I don't belong, or I'm not good. I'm not good enough. The whole point about this meditation is to just say the phrase, in spite of this thing that has happened that is it's bad, you unconditionally love yourself. Try that. See if it helps. It's helped me at times when something has happened and I just want to like lash out on myself, which is counterproductive. But you won't be able to stop it unless you come up with something strong to say, oh, wait, no. And that helps. Believe me, it helps. So we'll segue into our loving kindness meditation, which is what the unconditional love of self is. It's where you just say to yourself, okay, take this hand here, put it here, under your arm. Take this hand here, put over. And just give yourself that hug. It'll feel good. That sense of self-rocking. Oh, yeah, you can breathe too if you want. Oh, yeah, you're going to breathe anyway. Breathing isn't exactly, well, I mean, I believe in the meditative breath, but I also focus on other things, and I put the breathing in the background. Because what's more important is just the touch, the feeling, the touch, and the unconditional feeling of self-love. So, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Repeat that with someone you love in mind. Repeat that with someone you hate in mind. Repeat that with all the world in mind. Let's see if you don't feel a little better. Hey, thanks for joining us. Emil Amok's Checkout. We're here at 2 p.m. Pacific live. Catch us on the repeats on YouTube or on Facebook at emilguillermo.media or on my website, amok.com. Till next time, I'm Emil Guillermo. Mahal.